All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 2024 Campaign Optimization Series. My name is Kelly Lindsnow, and I'm the editor of Demand Gen Report, and I'm also your moderator today. So we're here today with a discussion surrounding revamp, reuse, recycle, conserving content to drive new campaigns. So with that, I would love to welcome our speakers today. First up is Kelsey Yen, Demand Generation Manager at Acton, who has been working on mastering the science of email and digital marketing for the past 5 years. She uses her passion for creativity to drive revenue for brands in both B2B and B2C markets. And she's joined by Matt Saylor, Senior Content Marketing Manager at Acton, who brings a decade of experience creating content and building strategy in the B2B space. So clearly these two know a thing or two about B2B, so let's pass things over to Kelsey to get us going.
Thank you so much. As Kelly said, my name is Kelsey Yen. I'm the Demand Generation Manager at Acton, and today we're going to be talking about how to revamp, reuse, recycle content in order to conserve what you've already created to drive new campaigns. Get more done with less, be thrifty with your marketing, all of that great stuff. So let's get into it. Let's talk trash. Today, we're going to be going through upcycling strategies. We're going to also be talking about the creative reuse process, what that actually means, and hopefully spark some ideas on how you can generate new campaigns utilizing the content that you've already created. And then we're going to be amplifying with automation to get more eyes on the content you've already created, get more engagement across the life cycle without all that heavy lifting of creating a brand new campaign every single time. So with that, Matt, you want to dive into upcycling strategies?
Thank you, Kelsey. Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Saylor. Let's get started with some upcycling strategies. So first, content upcycling. What is that? Well, no big deal. It's just the biggest media trend in the world at this moment. Don't believe me? Let's talk through this slide. So I want you to think about what these following content creators have in common. Taylor Swift. She did drop today her new album. That was something we arranged with her. So thanks, Taylor, for doing that for us. Netflix, the Marvel Universe, Barbie. They upcycle content. That's the answer. So Taylor Swift, you may know, has been re-recording her original albums, like her first 8 or 9 albums, because of a dispute with her record company. The most recent 1989 Taylor's version was the only album to sell 2 million copies in 2023. And it was originally released about a decade before that. Her Eras Tour, which revisits the hits and visual aesthetic from across her entire catalog, is the best-selling concert tour of all time at over $1 billion. Netflix. Yeah, they make new movies, but they also take movies that you've seen 1 million times, repackage them with some, new cover art, and get you to watch them again and pay a subscription for the pleasure. I know I'll watch Ghostbusters anytime it comes up on streaming, for example, and their value is $275 billion. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've been adapting comic book characters from the 1960s, the 1970s, some as old as the 40s. Captain America, for example, made his debut back in World War II around that time. And with a few recent exceptions, they've been the most profitable movie franchise of all time. And then Barbie, remember her? She had the top grossing movie of last year and really the media and marketing event of the year last year. And that's leveraging a toy that was invented in 1959. And then that brings us to Acton. We're a little bit less famous than the rest of those, but we're working on it. Kelsey and I reuse content from past teams and past campaigns from people who were, at the company before we even started to drive results even to this day. Acton is really lucky in this regard, as I said, because we have a year's worth of content in our back catalog relevant to digital marketing. But even if you're not sitting on like a huge trove of lightly used content like that, there's still a lot you can do in this area. So I'm really excited to dive in here. let's talk about when to reuse content and when not to, because I think you do want to be really intentional about this, right? You can't necessarily reuse everything, and you can't necessarily reuse it exactly as it was the first time, right? So we have a Taylor Swift quote here. I know it's long gone and that magic's not here no more. Well, maybe we can put the magic back into some of this content. So the first thing you want to do really is be systematic about this. What you can reuse, as we said, will vary by your organization and what you make and what your actual goals are. So you want to set up your own set of guidelines and standards for what you're going to be reusing. Don't go fast and loose with it. You really want to think about this and be intentional. Usually I recommend some kind of formal audit to review all the content, or at least all the content of a certain type or category. For instance, blogs can make a good candidate for that. And what you want to do is you want to, in that audit, basically set yourself up with some kind of spreadsheet or tool to ask yourself a small number of questions that you're going to ask about every single piece of content. 5 to 10 questions or so usually will suffice, depending on what you're dealing with. So what should those questions be, though? What are some of the things you should consider? So first of all, brand. Is the branding current? Think about the visuals, think about also the verbal aspects of your brand, if your voice and tone has changed since things were originally released. Does it need new design assets? Does it need rewriting? What are the technical elements and requirements, right? So if you do need some of those things like new design assets, rewriting, what are the actual people resources and the tool resources that you'll need to do that? Do you need video editing, and do you have someone who can do that in-house, or do you need to bring someone on or get some help, or maybe use an AI tool or something like that? And for the refresh, you don't want to just say yes or no to those kinds of questions as you're doing your audit. You want to give detail so you can really measure the scope of the effort. So for instance, if you're auditing, say you're auditing a bunch of long form ebooks, you have photography in there that's out of date. Make a note that the photography needs to change, but then maybe the graphics, those still look great and those are still in brand. So be specific is what I'm saying about what you're actually noting for each of these pieces of content, so that really guides the scope of when you actually do the updating. Look to your metrics, right? How did this perform in the past? But think about that in context and think about it strategically. So content that didn't work back then might still be able to work. By the same token, content that did work, it might actually not work this time. So, look at those metrics, but think about them, really carefully. So, maybe something had really great engagement, for instance, but you only promoted it for a week. So, a small number of people saw it, and there's probably still people in your audience out there that, could benefit from the content. Or, maybe you had something with really bad engagement. It didn't seem like people were staying on the page. It didn't seem like people were reading it. But maybe in that case, it was an SEO piece where the keywords didn't really rank. And so you weren't really getting the right kind of traffic onto it in the first place. And so you have an opportunity to still reuse the great ideas and thought leadership that you shared in the content. So when it comes to metrics, we have a little table here of just, I would say, metrics to consider, right? These aren't the be all end all of every metric you should look at, but these are some of the ones that will really point to engagement, because that's what you should really think about when you're evaluating this content, is how engaging was it? That's really going to be your clue to whether it will, continue to engage people now. So with blog, for instance, you want to look at time on page. How long did people spend with the article? What are your click-through rates on, in this case, I was thinking about search. So if you're on doing SEO blogs, what's the click-through rate on search on your search content? Engagement, timeliness, keyword trends, some other things you might want to look at for blogs. When it comes to ebooks, long form, thought leadership, white papers, whatever format, think about your form fills if it was gated, like how many people actually downloaded the asset. What were sort of the reader personas and traits that you were targeting at the time? Were there any timeliness aspects? Like, was it something that was topical, just sort of a current event related thing, like a current trend, or is it something that's more evergreen that could be reused? With emails, you're going to want to look at click to open rate, conversion, what was the type of email, things like that. And Kelsey's really our email expert, so she'll go a little deeper into things you can do with email a bit later. But those are some of the things you might want to think too. And then webinars. Hey, here's one. We're on one right now. You can look at your registration, your attendance, how many on-demand viewers did you get? What was the engagement like? So were there a lot of Q&A questions, a lot of participation and things like that? That would be a clue that, hey, I might have been onto something with this topic and I might want to reuse it or refresh it. And I want to fit in a little plug. We did a previous Act On webinar devoted to the content audit and rebranding process as it relates to campaign content. So look that one up if you're interested and see a little bit more deeply into that, what that audit process actually entails. But for this, we're going to move on and actually sort of look at the actual content. A few more things before we finish on this slide. Do this regularly. This should be a regular part of your content engine or machine, as some people like to call it. Maybe you, for instance, audit a new format of content every year or every quarter. Do all the blogs, do all the email programs. Maybe you break things into topic areas and audit things that way. So we're a marketing software company, so maybe we would do all the content on email marketing at one point, or all the content on social media marketing, et cetera, et cetera. And then, also make sure that you revisit all of your campaigns to see what's worth reusing and recycling. So not just content that you're creating on an ongoing basis, but if you had a focused campaign, do a little, debrief afterwards and talk with your team about, okay, what were the things that really worked and that we might be able to get some more mileage out of because there's, different audiences or people in the audience who didn't maybe see it yet. And then mix and match it with new content. I think that's really key. I don't think anyone would recommend using only reused content. The key is to kind of upcycle and add new content to it. Taylor's still putting out new albums like she did today, even though she's also kind of redoing her back catalog. Content strategy and repurposing. Let's talk about this a little bit. Please come into my weird house. I'm the weird Barbie in this scenario as a content strategist. I know as a content manager, I'm always looking for more help making my actual content strategy better. And for those of you who may not work really deeply in this area, content strategy is simply the internal process you go through to determine, what content you're going to make on what schedule to kind of get alignment from your internal people. It's not really a outward-facing deliverable, but that doesn't mean that there's not potential for repurposing here. So, in particular, what I'm always trying to do is make my content more aligned with what customers and prospects are thinking about, what their challenges and problems are. And so I think it almost goes without saying that your content strategy is, one of the most important elements of your marketing. So leverage your SMEs for this. What topics are coming up in sales calls, for instance? What questions are customer success teams hearing? It's going to depend on your org, but there's a lot of opportunity to connect internally and learn from that process as you're doing your content strategy. I'm going to share an example. And when I say I'm going to share it, I'm going to talk about it. It's kind of a top secret. Like I said, it's our internal content strategy. So it's not something that we're wanting to put out there in full because, we're pretty happy with it. And we think it's something we want to keep under wraps. But it is a great example. And you might have the opportunity to do something similar at your organization. So I wanted to talk through it a little bit. So our marketing team earlier this year, later last year, in consultation with our product group and other parts of the org, built this deliverable called a use cases framework. And the idea was it was a framework for a couple of reasons. It was to help the sales team speak to our product's benefits. It was also meant to identify what people use our product for, so that when we updated our website content, we could make sure that we were staying focused on that. And also help define our product vision. What are the things we want to develop? If there's things that our customers are thinking about and caring about that, our product isn't helping them with, what can we, develop in the future? And so essentially that deliverable was a spreadsheet of all the things our product does, all the priorities and pain points that our customers have, linking those two things together, right? So I'm having this problem. What's the function within the product that can help me with that? And so that was a really, so first of all, it wasn't meant to be any kind of content deliverable, but I'm really greedy. And so I realized pretty quickly that for my purposes, I could take that and I would be only a few steps shy of having a really robust content strategy for blog content for 2024. And so that's what I did. I took the spreadsheet. I made my own copy so that I made sure I wasn't going to mess up all the hard work that everyone did. And I adapted it to my use. I did keyword research on all those topics. I mapped out existing content onto it. What's the content we do have? Where does it fit within that framework? I made note of gaps where we needed content, made note of the places where we really had plenty, but maybe we needed to just update it, refresh it for topicality. And now I have a content strategy that I've been using for this year's blog content that's mapped perfectly to what sales are talking about, because as I said, sales is using this and as a resource in their conversation. It aligns perfectly with what our customers are doing with the product, and with the questions that prospects and customers are asking. And so now we have this upcycling strategy that has not only up-leveled my whole content plan, but has really created this huge amount of internal alignment across all the things we're doing. So, if a salesperson is having a conversation on a specific issue with a prospect, they can bring that up with us, and I have a supporting piece of content in the spreadsheet that I can provide them with, right? If a demand gen marketer like Kelsey is building an email sequence on a certain topic, I can easily find content on that because I've made it as part of this process. So, we've really repurposed our way into this total alignment across the org. So, again, kind of a off the beaten path example there, but I bet your organization has similar projects or initiatives like this that are happening internally that, if you kind of ask questions and get curious, you'll be able to find something you can leverage for your content strategy and planning. And so let's do a case study. This one is something we did a while ago, the best deliverability guide. We actually called it the best email deliverability guide for marketers or something like that. And so this is a great example of a content upcycle. So we have really at Acton, we have the best deliverability team in the business. You'll hear me and many others tout that. And they're really expert in this area of making sure that your emails are not just sending, but getting into the inbox. And, that team had been making content, honestly, for years before I even joined Acton, and doing a really good job of it with previous people in my role and similar roles. And as I said, this is a big differentiator for us. And so I really wanted to make some new content in this area. But it became clear as we were looking at the metrics for these previous pieces of content that had been made that not anyone really in our current ICP had seen much of this content or ideal client profile or customer profile. It dated back to several rebrands ago, a lot of it. In some cases, it dated back to older product versions, and so wasn't as relevant. But again, the people we're trying to reach now had not necessarily seen it. And so we took a lot of that content out of the proverbial attic, dusted it off, and sort of went forward with this process. So we compiled the best ones. There were some that we used and some that were I think just like a little too outdated and kind of not relevant to use, that we didn't include with this, but we did use a lot of the past content. First of all, we had our subject matter experts, our deliverability team, check this for accuracy. So this is a really evolving area, deliverability. Things are changing all the time. In fact, there was a change just earlier this year that Google and Yahoo did with a lot of their the way they handle inboxing that affected this. And so we wanted to make sure that all this content was still, fit with current deliverability best practices, not deliverability best practices from 3 or 4 years ago. And so they did that for me, which was great. I'm very lucky to have that team being really collaborative with us. They're always willing to help. And so from there, we needed a voice refresh. We'd been using a different brand voice at the time when we created that content than we are now. And so I took that upon myself to go through all that content for voice and add sort of our act on personality to it. And then we optimized that for SEO. We had this single long form story that we put on a blog. And honestly, the first time we optimized it for SEO, it didn't really rank, didn't really work. And so we looked back at it, found some other keywords that we thought would do better, and optimized it again for those keywords. And that time it did rank. So we actually did a double repurpose here in the process of this one. And so what were the results? Before we had these downloads, these PDFs sitting on gated pages on the website. You could find them and they were linked from things, but not a ton of traffic wasn't going to them. And they were getting, I think, literally single digits of downloads every year. So really were not doing anything for us. But after this process, which again was fairly, in terms of the size of the content piece, it was a fairly simple, straightforward process. Now it's driving 75 plus organic visits a month to our pages. People who land there are spending 5-10 minutes on the page. And we now have this permanent resource that's a link. It's not gated. It's open to everyone who wants to click on it, to provide customers curious about our deliverability practice with all kinds of information, customers or prospects, I should say. So really, really happy ending there. And you can see the kind of before after, content pretty similar, but very different look. And then we, if you actually go to the piece, you can see some of the SEO optimizations we did. We did a really nice job with it, I think. So I think I'm going to hand it back to Kelsey for the next slide.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Matt. That was some really great stuff. Now let's talk about creative reuse, how you can take one piece of content and stretch it to resonate across a diverse audience and unlock more value out of all that hard work. Yeah, there you go. So when you make it for one medium, then you multiply it. That's the easiest way to do it. When you're creating any piece of content, it's a big accomplishment. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of collaboration, a lot of time and effort and energy. So don't let it just be one and done. Figure out how you can reuse it across multiple mediums. And we're not talking about, okay, I wrote this ebook, now let's promote it in email. Now let's, put it, on a LinkedIn ad. No, like we're talking about reuse it in different mediums in the sense of take what worked, take a section of that and create a new piece of content out of that section. So just creating new content out of the content you already have. And thinking about breaking up that content across different channels and across different places in the buyer's journey as well. So that's where, Matt's audit comes into play, seeing what has worked in the past, seeing what audiences resonated with that content, and then start to plan out how you can use that at different journey stages throughout your buying cycle. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little later slide. But also you can multiply it using AI tools. We have a slew of AI tools at our disposal these days, and there's so many opportunities for you to use them in order to amplify your message and multiply it into different versions and iterations. And I am not one that loves ChatGPT in for a content creation perspective, but I love putting it in there and getting ideas and getting little snippets and framework for how I can take this piece of content and create something new out of it. So play around with it, use your favorite AI tools to do different things and to get different results out of it. So here's an example of how I would do that for, say, a webinar. So the easiest first step, key takeaways. Utilize, ChatGPT or an AI transcript or even your abstract for the webinar, and identify what the key takeaways were. Now expand on those, use the takeaways to turn those into blogs. Maybe one blog per takeaway. If you need the blog content, you could turn those takeaways into an email series. Follow up with those who registered for the webinar with an email series that is in line with, what you just talked about, and expand on that and provide additional resources that are of interest to that prospect. You could also turn the transcript into a blog. You could pull out little specific thought leadership nuggets and quotes and use those on social. Maybe do a social poll and see if your audience agrees with, this statement or something that was said in a webinar. There's different ways you can reuse that webinar content because it is thought leadership and it did take a long time to create. And so really just making the most out of it is really going to give you the biggest impact. And then the actual video replay. If you're not doing simu-live replays, this is your sign to do it. Add that into your marketing strategy. It is probably the easiest way to get more engagement, more lead generation out of your webinars. Replay it, 3-4 months later, send it to a new audience segmentation, use it in ads, so that you get a new audience viewing your content, and just replay it as live, join the Q&A and make it feel as live and authentic as you can. But now you're reusing content with very low lift and you're getting a brand new audience out of it. Easiest lead generation idea right there. And then clips, take the replay, break it up into small clips. Again, you can utilize the key takeaways, key quotes, things like that. Use those clips on social, add them to your blogs for SEO value. Maybe when you're looking at your emails and your email nurture programs, and you notice that there is a stream that could use a little bit more engagement or you want to see a little bit more conversion out of, try including a little animated GIF of that clip into your emails and see if you could get more conversion and more click through from that email. And again, that goes in line with some of that reuse strategy of, having all of this content and your content use cases align with your buyer's journey and all of the email topics so that you can continuously have a pool of information to update your emails with. Another way you can reuse replays, you can add them to your nurture sequences. You can gate them and use them for lead gen, and then put them into your monthly newsletter, use them in LinkedIn ads, put them on a product landing page. There's so many different ideas here that you can use. And I think I've probably talked about like 15 now, and that is just with one asset. And so I hope that gives you an idea of how you can really take what you've already put the effort into and really just expand upon it to use across multiple channels. And so here's another real life example. If the shoe fits, walk in it everywhere you go, said Taylor Swift. If the content makes sense, use it everywhere. So in real life, we are about to launch a new email composer. It is going to help make creating beautiful, engaging emails that are optimized across different devices super simple for our marketers to create. And we really want to put our best foot forward, since email is at the core of what we do and is at the core of what marketers do. So we really want to show off, our skills and our email prowess here. And so we have some goals and limitations, though, with that as well, right? We're low on people resources. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. we're a very small team. So we're trying to be as crafty and scrappy as we can be. So, how can we utilize what we've already created, what we've already put in the work for within this project? We also want to build awareness. Like I said, it's at the core of what we do as marketers. So we really want to just really promote that and become that thought leader within this space, and get more new eyes on the brand. Use this as an opportunity to show off what our product can do and get more eyes. So how can I utilize what I already have created to help me with this? So 1, review. Matt has done an audit in the past and he continues to add to it. So I already have a place to look for high performing email related content that we've used in the past, that we've done in the past, that's been revamped, right? Matt's new best deliverability guide ever that he already upcycled. So there's already some content I can use because it's top performing. Repackage it, put that into a new asset. One of the ideas I had was maybe creating an ultimate email toolkit, right? Pulling a bunch of really high performing email content into an ultimate downloadable asset. And so that's a new piece of content that we're creating. Some of it is new, but a lot of it is just repurposed from other ebooks, other blogs, and other things to create an ultimate offering. Identify new opportunities. Because it is a new email composer, we're already creating email templates and email designs for our own purposes to use within our new marketing. And so, that's an opportunity as well. I've already created these emails. Why not offer them as a downloadable as well, right? An opportunity for marketers to have email HTMLs that they can download and use in their own right? And then that's a new opportunity for us. It's not something that we've had before as a piece of content offering. And so it's a new opportunity, but again, it's low lift. It's reusing what we've already created. And then I'm a fan of it. I've said it before in this previous slide, but Semu Live, a top performing email webinar. This is such a low lift and it helps you get new engagers, new eyes on your brand. Again, promote it on new channels, promote it to a different segmentation, and start to see people engage with your brand, show off what you're going to be offering, and start getting them excited about this topic so that you can follow up with them with, hey, this is now what we're launching, and hey, this is another asset you might be interested in. Hey, this is another piece of content that you could find useful. And so you're creating this audience segmentation that's interested in this topic, and you're using all your old content to engage them. So that is just one way that I use older content for new products.
And hey, Mermy, just a little word on SEO here, and then we'll get back to Kelsey. But we wanted to kind of talk about SEO content and how it fits into this. We did a case study earlier on it, but SEO, I think of it as this ultimate renewable resource in the context of our upcycling theme. And so as Ultron said, I wanted to take this time to explain my evil plan. SEO is really a long game. Right? If you work with SEO at all, you know that it can take a long time. It can sometimes take weeks or months to get the results you need from something that you've posted. And it can even take just as long, and you may not get the results you need. You have to keep, working to try to get it. And even once you've, gotten to that top of the mountain and you've ranked your keyword, you could still lose it because there's plenty of SEO practitioners out there nipping at your heels trying to get it back, right? So, the point being, SEO is something, that kind of content that you can really keep updating essentially forever. And if you want to keep your rankings, you're probably going to need to update it essentially forever. And so, that really makes it kind of the poster child for creative reuse. And so, don't let that dissuade you. Let that sort of empower you to put this into sort of a regular cadence and process. So what I recommend is putting your SEO pages on a schedule. Those top performing pages that are ranked, or those pages that maybe aren't quite there yet that you want to keep growing. set them on a regular schedule, set aside time for each page to do research on either fresh keywords, to see what the competition is doing with those same keywords, if they're gaining on you or you need to catch up to them. Look at those leading search engine results pages, those CERT pages as they call them, and see what the competition is doing and find ideas that you can take from them. I think we're all doing that in the SEO space, right? Do things like, you have a blog post that you put up, it's doing really well, but hey, there's an opportunity to create more multimedia content. You can add photos, you can add some of those webinar clips that Kelsey mentioned. We'll do that where we'll take a webinar related to a specific topic, we'll edit some clips out of it, and we'll put that in the blog to sort of try to, get that rank higher, because as you know, those SEO crawlers love to see video and multimedia, particularly when you have the alt text and the transcript in place, right? So that's a great way to, bring something new to that content. And then, hey, bonus, they can click for that longer webinar and you can continue that engagement with them, right? You can bulk up your linking strategy. So, add pages to that old blog that you've created since then that you want them to continue searching. Don't just stop once you've posted the blog and kind of moved on to other things. In other words, you can also, want to keep an eye on that technical SEO and metadata. Make sure that's as you're updating your website, that's all staying in line. Like we're often, for instance, going and fixing our redirects, because we redirect things, we do new pages, we change things around to the website, and all of a sudden the old blogs aren't, pointing to the right place. It's a bad experience. You want it to be aiming right everywhere. So that's something you have to continually update. And so, yeah, SEO, this is just just to say, be constantly updating and upcycling those things. It's really something that you can continue to work on, really into the future. So back to Kelsey.
Great, thanks, Matt. So now we're going to talk about amplifying it with automation, right? So we've come up with some new creative reuse strategies. We've audited, we've found good pieces of content, we've picked out little nuggets that we want to reuse. So how can you get the most out of it and amplify that throughout your buyer's journey to really scale this strategy? So reuse plus automation in order to engage the entire journey. If you get emails from Raccoon, nothing sounds crazy anymore, right? That's what Black Widow said. So get, keep, grow. This is your entire buyer's journey. This is your sales funnel. So when you're looking at updating your automated programs and updating how you're engaging throughout the journey, start to think about how you can use different pieces of content at each of these different touch points. So when you're nurturing prospects into opportunities, that's an easy way for you to be showing them different blogs, different ebooks, different long forms, different webinars, different things like that, so that you're continuously hitting them in the topic of interest that they originally came in from. You're targeting audiences and segmentations based off that topic of interest. So again, utilizing that audit that you've done in order to define what is an ideal segment for this piece of content, and then what other content is similar to this, and what can I do with that content to help nurture those into opportunities and create an omni-channel marketing approach. So you can start to see how you can scale and utilize all of this content and to create programs that you're not having to build from scratch. Right. And then you can also use content within sales cadences. If I have a great quote from this webinar, say, right, you can give quotes to your sales team and say, hey, when you're following up on some prospects, and they have this topic of interest, here's a great quote, or here's a great thought leadership, or ask them if they've thought about XYZ, right? And so now you're using content and thought leadership from webinars and in order to have engaging conversations with prospects that are in line to what they're thinking and what their original interest was. And you're empowering sales to keep promoting additional pieces of content so that we really do sound like the experts in the area, and we really do have all of the content that that customer may be looking for, or the solutions that they may be wanting. And then scale. With automation, you're able to scale it by creating these segmentations and these audiences. They're continuously being updated as more and more prospects engage, and they're continuing to get these messages throughout the life cycle. And so you're scaling and handing them off over and over and over without much daily intervention. So how can you reuse content to keep customers? Kind of the same principle here, right? We've created thought leadership through white papers, through webinars, through blogs, and things like that. Reusing those content ideas and maybe snippets from that in order to emphasize your onboarding messages. And so things like, if I'm, we're Act On, right? So we're a marketing automation platform. If we're helping customers onboard and learn how to use a platform, maybe we'll also offer tips. Hey, this is a great idea. If you're sending emails, you may want to do XYZ, right? And I can put a clip, or I can also put a link to a webinar if you want to get more ideas on how to create automations. Drive adoption and usage, same concept. Utilize different triggers and different intent signals in order to trigger these messages, to send them these pieces of content that are relevant within their current adoption phase. So again, if they haven't sent their first email yet, maybe I'll send them a webinar on how to, create a super engaging automated program, right? And so then we look like the experts. We're helping drive adoption, and we're helping them get into the platform and do more. And then we're engaging them at the time that they need it with the content that's most relevant to them. And that's the best part about automation, because you're able to look at intent signals and engagement and link that with the content. So you're engaging them when they want to see it, which is perfect. Last, you can also reuse content to upsell, grow advocates, and build loyalty as well. Kind of the same concept here. If you're upselling, say, our deliverability services, right? Using that deliverability ebook could be a great opportunity to be like, hey, this is some great things you should be looking at. Did you know that your deliverability is XYZ, right? And so you're pairing that content with a message of upsell, and you're creating opportunities to continue to grow that customer. And then, it builds advocates and it builds loyalty because you actually seem invested in their growth and in their continued use of the product. And so they start to rely on your expertise. They start to enjoy these conversations, and it doesn't feel like you're selling. You're just providing content that is of use to them, because you have great metrics for them, you have success stories from them, and so you're just helping build out that buyer's journey. So here's an example of how I did an automated program refresh utilizing content that we've already had. So when I first started in this role, I did a look at all of our automated programs. We had 36 programs, and what I noticed was that content was outdated. It was older. There wasn't much of a buyer's journey interest here. Segmentation was really just based on industry. There was no long-term catch-all sequence. It just, once they finished their 5 emails, they were done, right? So there was nothing that was continuously engaging them. The flow was inconsistent between offers and topics, and we weren't performing regular audits. So if you think about 36 different programs, these were kind of the issues with all of them. That's a huge project to redo all of those programs. And so, it would have taken me maybe a year to update all of them, given other responsibilities. But thinking about how can I actually reuse content we already have? Some of the emails weren't necessarily performing poorly. It's just they needed a refresh. And so how can I utilize what we have, what works in the past, and apply that to the update? So what I ended up doing was updating the branding and some of our better performing emails, just refreshing those, aligning segmentation based off topic of interest, because I knew what topics actually performed well for what segmentations. I was able to apply that knowledge to a buyer's journey and automate that interaction. And then longer form nurture streams. So once, they finished their 3 to 4 or 5 email cadences, there was a long form nurture sequence that they were continuously getting from us now. And the easiest thing to do is, if you're using this content repurpose strategy within your marketing plan, every time I send an email about a new blog or about a new ebook, just add that to the stream, right? And so now you're creating these automated programs that are continuously updated. They have fresh new content in them. And, you're not having to create a whole program of, 15, 16 emails. You're just adding one at a time whenever they're ready. And so you're reusing those emails that maybe you sent to a different audience. Now you're putting this in the nurture, and it's growing out your programs. And then again, with flow, basing it off engagement and interest. If you have all these different pieces of content and you're tagging them with what that topic is, you can start, easily adding them to different tracks and to different streams based on that engagement and that interest. And then performing monthly reviews and audits. It makes things so much easier if you're continuously auditing and not having to do everything from scratch from step one. And so if you're continuously looking at it and continuously identifying some opportunities and some holes, you're going to have a much easier time and a much quicker refresh in your works. So that's pretty much it for our ideas for revamping, reusing, and conserving your efforts. So takeaways. Today is never too late to be brand new. Thank you, Taylor Swift. That's a great point. Start utilizing upcycle strategies within your marketing plan. Get creative, look for opportunities to create something new out of something old. Utilize automation and recycling to scale your efforts across the entire buyer's journey. And, try to get the most out of what you've done, because you've done great stuff. So, Matt, do you have any other takeaways you want to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thanks, Kelsey.
All right, awesome, guys. That was perfect. I have been compiling a list of questions as they came in. So if you have any questions you haven't submitted yet, I encourage you to speak now and send them in so we can answer them. But for those who have already submitted their questions, I'm going to dive into those. So the first question that we have is, how can I use AI tools like ChatGPT to help refresh content, and what other AI tools do you recommend?
That's a great question. I'll start. Sorry, Kelsey, and then you can jump in. ChatGPT is pretty good. I think ChatGPT will not really work so well with long form stuff. Although if you set up your prompt well, you can use it for shorter pieces of copy, and it's usually pretty good, at least giving you a start. Like if you had something and you said maybe you wanted to do it for a different audience, and you said, hey, could you make this more of a B2C audience, for instance? It's pretty decent at doing things like that. I think there's a lot of opportunities here. I'm going to name a few tools, and just know that I'm not necessarily endorsing them. They're just some ones that I've heard of and did a little research on. So for AI video editing, there's a lot out there that you can use that will basically take a longer video and sort of chop it into little social bits for you. Clipchamp is one of them. I think actually Canva even has a function like that that'll do it. And again, like it'll get you usually get you 90% of the way there, and then you may have to tweak it a little bit. There's also mentioned ChatGPT for writing. There's also like more paid AI tools that you can use that'll give you like a little more sophistication. I think Grammarly's tool for this is pretty good for AI writing, and WordTune is one that I've heard of that I think I've heard good things about. So those are a few that you can use. I think AI can be really good for that, particularly as I said, if you've got something that's like, you know, a lot of the way there, but you just need to kind of dial in those tweaks or maybe do kind of an adjustment to the content. Kelsey, did you have any other stuff to add?
No, those are great tools. The only thing I would say additionally is if you have like an add-on transcriber to like Zoom or things like that, that's always nice to have additional like notes and takeaways that you can add to different cadences and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. You can use like those transcripts. Hey, you have a blog now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, awesome, guys. So unfortunately, we are coming up on time, so I won't be able to get to any more questions. But to anyone who submitted questions and we didn't get to them, just keep in mind we will send all of the answers directly to your inbox once we wrap here. So that is a wrap on today's session. Matt and Kelsey, thank you so much. And to all of our attendees, thank you so much for tuning in.